All right, guys, welcome back to the final round here today. And here today, we have some boxing. So today we're going to talk about this guy, Jaron Boots Ennis. Oh, there, we're back. I just want to make the picture a little bigger so you can see Boots. Jaron Boots Ennis. This video is going to be, what I've been doing. Kind of my career flashpoints, talking about how he's done so far in his career, what could be next, how will he fare at 154 pounds as he moves up to take on Musima Lima. And I'll start with this fight, his current fight with Musima Lima, who he's a good fighter. He's 14-1. By the way, if you don't know, Jaron Boots Ennis is 34-0 with 30 knockouts. And I'll go over his, I'll do a quick. Well, actually, he has 35 fights. He has the no contest fight to Chris Van Heerden, which I'll mention in a little bit. But let's just quickly give some credit to Musima Lima. He's a good fighter. He's 32 years old. He was born in Angola. Currently trains in Portugal. He's a good fighter. He's 14-1. His one loss came back in 2023 to Aaron McKenna. Now, Aaron McKenna is still an undefeated middleweight prospect. Really good, solid Irish fighter. He's currently 20-0. He just defeated Liam Smith back in April by wide decision. Dropped him in the 12 and he cut him. He's a bit of a dirty guy, but he's a good fighter himself. And it's actually kind of funny that when he fought Lima actually went up in weight. Lima went up it's actually, I believe, he was only Lima's. I'm looking at his career here, and from what I'm seeing, he actually had a bunch of his career at middleweight. He actually. So I'm, obviously it's just it's clear over Lima's career, briefly. He didn't really fight anybody good. He only had in his first 4 or 5 fights. He only had one guy, Mansur Moody, who had a winning record. But really wasn't fighting great. Was just kind of fighting, mediocre club guys in Spain and Portugal. Not really anybody of actual note, really. He fought Jeffrey Rosales, who's kind of the Jeffrey Rosales has been the best way I could put it, kind of the European, kind of European gatekeeper. If you beat Jeffrey Rosales, you're able to. He fights a lot. He's from, he's from Panama. If you beat Jeffrey Rosales, you're a mediocre fighter at best. But he didn't really fight anybody good. And then, and really had fought nobody good, honestly. Nobody good at all. And then he takes out Aaron McKenna at middleweight. And he had actually had his entire career at that point had been at middleweight. Takes on Aaron McKenna. He loses by unanimous decision. Isn't really close to the cards. It was for the WBC International Middleweight title, sort of a minor title. McKenna won that fight. And after that fight, Lima went down in 154, which is probably a smart decision because he's only, I don't know about, I'm trying to look at his I was trying to look at his actual dimensions real quick, but what is dimension? I'm trying to look at his. So I'm going back to his Aaron McKenna fight. He was a very late replacement, by the way. Shaquille Thompson was supposed to be the guy fight the guy who was fighting Aaron McKenna back then, and even though Lima lost, he was pretty close, very short notice, and he came in there and he fought decently well considering. And Aaron McKenna is someone who I would view as I'd say a legit top 20 middleweight. I wouldn't say top 10. I don't know yet, but he's a legit middleweight prospect. So the fact that he fought him and didn't get knocked out or anything, he lost, but His next fight, he fought a couple. He fought Harold Matavasian, who isn't really a good fighter, but is kind of a was I'd say not mid level contender level, but kind of low level contender level. Um, and then he took on Sukdeep Singh Body, some 19-0 guy, not really good, and he defeated him for the IBO Super Welterweight title, and he defended that recently in 2025, back in May 31st, and he had that fight in South Africa against Servantaj Koopman, who I have no idea who he is and looks like he sucks. Yeah, he's fun. He's fucking cans. But yeah, no, but so he is the IBO Super Welterweight Championship. This fight with Boots is not for the IBO. It's not for the IBO title, which kind of doesn't make sense because Boots Ennis fought for the welterweight version of the IBO title, but then again, most likely what's probably happening is Boots Ennis wants. I mean, this fight is a WBA title eliminator, and which it makes sense from Dom Lima's perspective because the IBO title, it depends on what division you're in. I think the fact that Usyk has it at heavyweight makes it a legit title. Really, if someone has it who's the let's say the undisputed champion, like Bivol had it at one point when he first beat Beterbiev, or am I wrong? I'm not really sure. But if someone like Usyk has it, it's a legit title. When Joshua fought Klitschko, the IBO was vacant, and it was a part of the title picture at the time. So the IBO title is not on the line for some reason. I'm assuming that Lima is still going to be the IBO champion, even if he loses, which is kind of weird because um, you do see that sometimes. But usually it's for guys to go fight other guys and they win. They usually don't lose and stay champion. I'm assuming that the IBO might strip him, but the IBO isn't the IBF and it's not the WBC. Where like if you don't fight interims, they strip you. The WBA and WBO and the IBO, in that order, in terms of the WBA has mandatory, WBO does, but the WBO and IBO really don't give a shit. As long as you put their title in the picture, they're happy. I forgot my water. 1 second. All right, we're back. So basically, he's fighting Usima Lima, good fighter, 14-1. I'll go over more about what I've seen of Lima in the footage I've watched. When that fight comes, because it's October 11th, so there's a couple weeks or 2-3 weeks away. But let's get to Boots Ennis. So he's had a very successful career. He's 34-0, 30 knockouts. He's really good. He is at this point. Obviously he's not fighting at welterweight. He's moved up, but after he beat Stanionis, he was clearly the best welterweight in the world. He held the WBA and IBF titles, as you see in the picture right here. I think the Stanionis fight was actually a unification, or maybe Chukadzian was a unification. I don't really see. It's hard because, as people don't know, BoxRec and WBA have beef now, so WBA isn't on. It's kind of funny because Nick Ball is the WBA champion, I think, at featherweight, and BoxRec has him as the number one featherweight in the world, which is hilarious. But he's not but on their list of champions, he's not on there. He's just the number one guy in the world. And obviously, the WBA welterweight title is now owned by Rolly Romero. Just kind of crazy how things go quickly in boxing, but the IBF, obviously both his titles that he had welterweight. I think Rolly Romero has the WBA title, and now Louis Croca has the IBF title after his sort of controversial win over Paddy Donovan a couple of weeks ago, the same night as Canelo Crawford. I did talk about in my big boxing review, number 2. So let's get into Jaron Ennis' career. So he started off as a pro in 2016. Actually, I didn't check his amateur career. He had a pretty good amateur career, 22-3, pretty good. Actually, kind of funny that he. It's actually kind of funny that he actually. He actually. No, it's funny. I'm Gary Russell Jr. He has a brother. I'm Gary Antoine Russell, who the Antoine, and they are brothers, by the way, who's an 18-1 pro, doesn't fight anymore. Um, Actually, I think he's an older brother, actually. Um, but they're definitely related. They look the exact same. They're pretty much the exact same. But he was, he really. I mean, let's be honest. I gotta be honest with you. He amateur. I mean, he fought. I remember had Nova. He fought Jermaine Ortiz. I mean, he fought. He fought Gary Antoine Russell 3 times. I mean, he really fought some good guys in the amateurs. Um, but he turned pro in 2016, and he's only 28. So let's do the math. 9 years ago, he was 19 years old when he turned pro. So he was young, very very young when he turned pro. Obviously hails from Philly. It's actually kind of funny. I saw him. He's been a where is it? There's a fight that. No, where is it? Sorry about that. It was a fight. Sorry, one second, guys. Okay, yeah. So let's just start his career. So, he started off with fighting in America, fighting lowly fighters, really nobody of actual real a genuine note or anything. But just fighting mediocre fighters for a good while. He beat the journeyman names like James Winchester, Alvin Perez. I'm the sort of guys that most of those guys fight at the time. Don Wilfredo Acuna, Don Mora Flores, pretty much all of the names of all the mid-level journeymen who exist in America, North America really. And he kept on building his name. Over. I mean, he fought like 70 times. 2016, a bunch. 2017 he fought a ton. Really didn't fight anybody of actual note until he fought until he fought Mike Arnudis. Mike Arnudis is a good fight. It was okay in his time. Had a career record of a 26, 12 and 2. I'm not a great record at all, but was a mediocre guy really at best. He you know um um his career was he fought Ricardo Torres for the WBO super lightweight title back in I think 2006, yeah, 2006, and really lost to Kendall Hull, the but and the one guy that fans will know about who know Canelo, the Mauro Tyner, he actually beat him, and he actually took Tyner's first. He gave Leonardo Tyner his first loss, which was a pretty good win for him. But he got obliterated by Victor Ortiz in 2009. I remember that was on an HBO card. Um, I remember watching as a kid, watching Antonio Margarito get destroyed by Shane Mosley, and hearing Jim Lampley go, Victor Ortiz fighting Mike Garnudis on in March on HBO. And I remember, okay, I'll watch that fight, and Arnudis got blood, he got destroyed in 2 rounds. But he was never a great fighter. But he fought Demetrius Hopkins, Delvin Rodriguez. He fought a lot of names at the time. So, Oscar Algieri. So, for Boots Ennis, it wasn't a great win, but it was against a former world title challenger, a guy who had been a gatekeeper of sorts for years. Um, and then in 2018 took on I'm a good fighter at the time, Armando Alvarez, who was undefeated. He was 18-0, and they fought for the WBC USA Silver Welterweight championship. Really wasn't a big title or anything, but it was an important win for Jaron because I think at the time, 18, he was only 21. I think he was only was what 8 years ago, so he would have been 20 or 21 when he fought that time, and it was a big win for him. Knocked him down around 3. Alvarez was down 4 times. He then took on Raymond Serrano. Pretty good, mediocre guy. Retired after his Ennis fight. He got destroyed, but he was a mediocre guy himself. Um, you know, he took pretty quick care of him, and then he fought some pretty good fighters. Fought kind of the kind of the low rise to contender level guys. And then In 2020, I think was I forgot his record at the time when he fought Chris Van Heerden. What was it? He was a 26-0. Yeah, he was 26-0. It was 2020. He was 25 years old. Or no, actually, no, he was 23. He was young, 23 years old. And this was at a time in 2020 when the welterweight division was a lot different. You still, I mean, I think the Spence fight was 2022. So Spence was still, you had Spence, you had Sean Porter. I think Sean Porter, I think it was around the time that Sean Porter fought Crawford. Maybe a little after. Or no, it was before that, actually. But this was a time where you had the Sean Porters, you had the Keith Thurmans, you had other people. Hold on. Sorry, guys. That was Isaiah trying to send me a link for the videos. I'm recording a video right now, cocksucker. But yeah, no, he took on Chris Van Heerden when he was 23. But this was when the welterweight division was so different, and this was actually for the IBO welterweight title, and literally was quick. It was like at the end of the first round, they were going to clinch him and Chris Van Heerden, who, Chris Van Heerden was a good fighter. I think that would have been a really good test for a young Jaron Boots Ennis. And I still think he would have beaten Van Heerden, who was, I think 28-1 at the time. He still would have beaten him, I think. But it would have been a harder fight than, like, say Xander Zayas had against Jorge Garcia Perez. But there was an accidental headbutt. The cut was, I think it was right over here on Varians. It was gushing, and the fight was called off. No contest. So then about, pretty much close to 4 months later, he took on Sergey Lipinets, a pretty solid contender level guy. Beat him the crap out of him in 6 rounds. And finished him around 6. He then took on the long time welterweight and super welterweight not prospect. I'd say contender in the Thomas Delorme, and Thomas Delorme was a really good fighter for a number of years. I mean, really, his second loss came to Terrence Crawford in 2015 when he fought for him for the WBO super lightweight title. He was a good fighter, man. He was a solid guy. Lost to Rennis Ugas 2017. Amanda Dragic, Jesse Vargas. Lost to Jamal James. And kind of funny thing about Jamal James. I thought Jamal James was going to be a guy that was really going to be a good fighter. He finished his career 28-2, but he had a brutal fight against Razab. Who hasn't fought since. Kind of funny, huh? Crazy shit, right? Crazy shit. But Delorme has fights against him. Sonny Onus. Actually, funny. He lost to Sonny Onus, and then 6 months later lost to Boots Ennis. Was worse because Boots Ennis knocked him out in a round, and Sonny Onus beat him by decision. He then lost to Virgil Ortiz in his last fight. But he was a good, solid fighter for a number of years. He wasn't world level, but he was kind of a world level gatekeeper in a way. If you beat him, you were ready for the best. It was a good win for Boots Ennis, and they took on a guy who boxing fans who know who Custio Clayton was, Custio Clayton, I thought he was going to be a world champion. He was undefeated for so many years, and he was 1901. I'm gonna make someday. I want to make a video about his career because he really could have been something really special. I mean, he had a draw against Sergey Lipinets for an interim title during COVID, and it just ever since then he hadn't recovered. He beat some can. Boots Ennis destroyed him in 2 rounds. I mean, obliterated him in 2 rounds. And then Boots took on carried Chikadzian for the interim IBF title. Beat him by decision. Destroyed Roman Villa in 10 rounds in 2023. And then took on David Evanesian for the IBF welterweight title and destroyed him. Really good, solid world level guy. Destroyed him in 5 rounds. And then took on Chikadzian in a rematch. Defeated him by even. It was a closer fight, but it was a good fight. And he defended his IBF welterweight title, and then took on Stanionis, which was a big fight for him. The Stanionis fight was a pretty big fight. That might have been the unification with the WBA title. Maybe I'm wrong, but it was a big fight, and Stanionis was stopped after 6, and that was it. And Stanionis, he's actually fighting this weekend, so we'll see if he can get back on track. But and yeah, and after I don't know if it's 3 defenses or 2 defenses of his title. He had 2 belts. He was the best welterweight in the world. Wasn't going to get any of the big fights because the division was so fractured at the time. But he's going out to fight UC Malima. Um, we'll see how he fits in at 154. He's taking UC Malima, which is a title eliminator for WBA. Obviously, the WBA champion at junior welterweight, or sorry, junior middleweight is still Bud Crawford. I'm assuming Bud's going to vacate that title. Um, the Lima fight will probably still be a title eliminator, but Boots' fight after that, granted he wins, of course, will probably be for the vacant title, or who knows. It's not, because Bud has said he's not going back. He said in the press conference he's not going back down. We'll see. Who knows? But there are good champions at 154. I don't know who he's going to be fighting, but the Bakar Murtazalia is rumored to fight Josh Kelly. We'll see. I mean, the fight with Lima should be for the IBO title. It should at least give him a title, but whatever. Sebastian Fundora taking on Keith Thurman for his WBC title in October. We'll see what happens there. And then you got Xander Zayas as WO champion. So we'll see what Boots Ennis can do. I think he has a good chance against Xander Zayas. Great chance. I think he has a good chance against Sebastian Fundora. I think a fight between Virgil Ortiz with him would be awesome. Ortiz has to fight against Erickson Lubin for his interim WBC title. And then you got Murtazalia. So interesting fight to Boots Ennis. I think he can beat all those guys. So we'll see. Very excited to see where Jaron Boots Ennis goes from here, and excited to see his first fight at 154, how he feels, and hey, you never know. Maybe maybe that kind of rumored fight with Crawford might happen. You never know. All right, guys, that's gonna do it. My name is Jake. This is the final round, and remember, the greatest fighters always leave it all in the final round. See you guys.